as great of a season they had, it's hard to find points for improvement. Welcome to the Vamos Moros podcast, your source for everything Louisville City and Racing Louisville on the State of Louisville podcast network. I am Zach.
I'm Benton. Zach, how have you been?
I've been pretty good. We've had a little time to let things settle after the end of the season. Take things digest a bit.
We took our time. I like the idea of that. Let things digest, let it settle.
The wounds are no longer as fresh. We can look back on everything holistically.
Yeah, I agree with that.
How are you feeling?
I'm doing all right. Obviously wish the season would have ended with a few more trophies or whatnot, but overall, I'm happy with how the campaign has been, and I've been enjoying my time off from all my self-imposed soccer obligations.
I have quickly filled all of that time up with other self-imposed obligations. So,
yeah, I'm the same way. But I'm ready. I'm ready to talk about the team again. The season
it's a good season to talk about. Like quibbles about the end of it aside, that we'll get into it. I would argue the best season they've had
I
as
agree.
far as season goes.
Overall, I mean, I'm very pleased with how the season went. Obviously, you want a little bit more from it, but I mean, aside from winning a championship, which every team wants, we couldn't have asked for a lot more. Even just the on-field product itself, the entire season was just super exciting and fun to watch.
Yeah, high-level stuff from start to finish. We'll get into it, but no real lulls in the season. Just kind of steadily defeating everyone at just a very going through my notes. It was actually kind of hard to remember specific things because it was such a just season long dominant streak that everything kind of blurred together until I had to look into specifics really.
Yeah. I mean, looking at the match listing, I can recall the highlights and whatnot, but yeah, the holistic theme is that they just kind of marched through the league, a few little hiccups here and there. You had some blowouts, you had some close ones, but for the most part, they were just an insanely dominant team. And, you take out one bad night, they could have gone much deeper in the playoffs. Now, I don't want to take away from what Rhode Island did in the playoffs, but I think it is also fair to call that an off night on the Louisville City controllable end of the spectrum as well.
Yeah.
And we really didn't have that
Rhode Island did to
much other
all
part.
3 Eastern Conference teams they played.
Yeah, that makes it look a lot better in hindsight, but they really do not have many down moments. And anytime down games. Anytime they had some moments of inferiority, they were always able to come back in pretty resounding fashion.
They bounced back from every single bit of, I don't want to call it struggle because they never really struggled, but they never had 2 losses in a row. 16-0-1 at home, so only the 1 loss at home the full season. I think early in the season they had 2 draws in a row. It's basically the biggest struggle of the season. Draw to Las Vegas Lights away, draw to Rhode Island away.
Both of which ended up being good teams, because I think at the time this happened, we were kind of looking at them as more inferior opponents, with Las Vegas traditionally being a bad team and Rhode Island being new. So those aged a lot better than they felt in real time.
Yeah, let's just run through. So let's run through the season that was. So home opener against El Paso, season opener against El Paso away. 1-0 win. then the home opener against Pittsburgh, which I was nervous about because historically home openers against Pittsburgh have been nightmares.
Yeah, that and I remember the first match of the season wasn't like their most convincing performance.
Yeah, it was just a 1-0 win. But
yeah, I mean, they didn't blow them out of the water. They
handled Pittsburgh 3-1, and then just absolutely crushed Birmingham at home the next game. 5-0.
That was probably the first sign that we like maybe had something special on our hands. Obviously, like it's sample size of one, but that was the first one where you raise your eyebrows a little bit, like, okay, all right, I'm liking this a lot.
Yeah, so they start the season off with a 4-game win streak. 2-3 loss away at Charleston, which was pretty. That was a tough, rough, well-fought match away against an opponent we knew was going to be top of the East.
I think
so
it was
I was
a good
not
learning
really
moment.
Concerned.
Yeah, especially since they came back. Like that score, like the score line doesn't reflect that the second half comeback, and that was mostly just a poor first half performance.
But yeah, then they reel off 3 more wins. Then we have the low point of the season: draw against Las Vegas away, draw against Rhode Island away. But then 3-game win streak throughout here. You've got 6-0 victory against Hartford, 3-0 victory against Orange County, 5-1 victory against Detroit. Not just gritting out 1-0, 2-1 victories, but just like a bunch of blowouts here.
Yep.
Lost to Tampa on the road.
It's June is when they had their rockiest patch. That's because
lost win.
Yeah, they kind of alternated, and there was also a 1-0 win over Pittsburgh in there, so not as convincing. I remember that one being a very controversial game, though. The Pittsburgh, that was one of them where you're like, the officiating was a factor there.
In the middle of there is the game that I chalked up to a fluke at the time, but in hindsight was maybe revealing of something. The 5-2 loss to Rhode Island at home.
Well, in our defense, Rhode Island really hadn't done much up until that point. That was really kind of their catalyst, if you will. If you go back and look at the makeup of their season, that was kind of the turning point for them in terms of finding their identity.
Yeah, I seem to remember they had a ton of draws early on. They kind of had the season that midway through the year we were kind of hoping racing would have. Just get a bunch of draws and then figure it out, and then go on a streak and close the season strong. But yeah, but they recovered. They turned right around from that. Poor Birmingham. 4-1 victory against Birmingham on the road. They did not
have a good year.
No. And then, the last real bump, you mentioned the month of June was kind of rough. So they 0-1 loss to the Roots away, but that's an away game in Oakland. That
was the kind of the humdrum of the season. I think we were dealing with a lot of injuries at that point. I don't think we were overly concerned at that time about the wheels coming off, but they were starting to look a little bit more mortal at that point. But
then they reel off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wins in a row.
That also includes a win over the eventual champions, the Switchbacks.
Yep.
Worth pointing out. We could have done that again if we made it there.
But yeah, lost to Hartford, and then 3-game win streak, lost to Detroit away.
Oh, that loss to Hartford. Yeah. John Griggs, the referee. That one is a load of BS.
Yeah. So I will say, as great of a season they had. It's hard to find points for improvement for next year. We'll get to that at the end. I will note which I mean they tied the record for wins in a season, so it's hard. Like it's really I feel like nitpicking, but so 16-0-1 at home, as good as you could possibly be. That we're probably not going to match that next season at home.
It's hard.
8-4-5 on the road. I do feel like that's a good road record. I don't. I need to look at the league as a whole. Probably still near the top of the league on the road, but there is room for improvement there. Like I think they could theoretically have a better away record next year.
Yeah, I mean, mainly I'm looking at some numbers here I pulled. I have the breakdown of like home and away statistics. So goals for at home, 3.41. Goals for on the road is 1.47. So, and the goals against were a bit closer than that. So
yeah.
It comes down to their offensive output there. And I think part of that is, the pitch that they're playing on, not only the like surface conditions, but the size of it as well, because one thing we talked about time and time again is how well this team used that full large pitch and how many teams struggled to take advantage of that. There's only a couple teams I thought did well with it, with Rhode Island actually being one of them.
I was going to say that the wide pitch, I think, got turned against them in both of those Rhode Island games.
I wouldn't say turned against them. They just couldn't lean on that. They had spaced themselves out. I remember watching that match in real time before things kind of, panned out the way that they did. I'm talking about the 5-2 one. Like, oh, they were actually doing a good job with the size of this pitch because most teams were not doing that.
Yeah.
It was only really the top teams that kind of did halfway decent job. Your Charlestons, I think Sacramento did pretty well.
Yeah. Well, and this is a case where I wish we had John on to talk about this because I think he would probably have more insight than us dum-dums. But I'm curious, what do you think it is? Because this might lead into our, what are we going to do in the offseason? What did Rhode Island do that was so effective at bottling or at keeping Louisville City at bay? And what do you think we can do next season to counter that?
I feel like that they did the little things well. I'm thinking mostly of the playoff loss in particular, and because the first one they got a few fluky goals in the beginning. One was just like an outrageous shot from distance. The other was like an incredibly like angled shot, and you're chasing the game at that. And so that's kind of why, one of the several reasons why I wrote off the original one. But when we played them in the playoffs, like they executed well on the little things. And in terms of their tactical setup, I felt like they were okay. They pretty much played a very similar style to us. They were okay not having the ball. They were defensively responsible. And when they attacked quickly. And that worked well, particularly against us, because, when we're on attack, we're all men forward. So if they're having those, we talked about quick counters, and that didn't seem to pan out for a lot of teams this season. But with how they were playing, I mean, essentially, what it looked like to me is that the best strategy to go against our strategy is just use the same damn thing and arguably do it a little bit better at times.
Yeah, and I will add like a thing that stood out to me specifically that they did that I didn't feel like any other team was able to do to me was they were able, and this really plays into the idea of, not letting the wide pitch get them, is they were the only team that I saw that was able to defend Louisville City on the wing one-on-one without ever getting burned. I think especially on our home field, Louisville City all season really thrived on spreading teams out, getting isolations on the wing, winning those one-on-one matchups, and creating through that. And just on an individual player level, Rhode Island was able to defend those wing players one-on-one without having to send a second defender from the center. And that sort of takes away the width of the field when you're able to do that. It keeps you from having to commit players out to the wing and take them out of the middle. And so
we thrived on that numerical advantage like across the pitch because most teams weren't, I don't feel like, playing as wide of a setup.
Yeah.
And because they were playing a very similar shape, they
So,
didn't have to make any sort of adjustments to it.
My big watch this offseason for a team that's not Louisville City is, does Rhode Island re-sign both of their outside backs? Because I think that was pretty central to their game plan against Louisville City.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, so looking at the tail end of the season while we're still recapping, and so Louisville City. I'm trying to remember when we wrapped up playoff. I mean, it was a very early playoff clinch, and then I think like 3 or how many games left did they lock up first seed overall?
They did that with the Indy draw on October the 5th because it was that Rowdies game. That following one is when we were officially awarded the Players' Shield.
Yeah, so 5 or actually no, that's counting playoff games. So like 3 or 4 games left in the season, they got the Shield.
I feel like we clinched playoffs like in a very like unforgettable fashion. Like
it was early.
Yeah, it was so early. We weren't worried about it, and I think it was coming off of. I genuinely don't remember. Was it like the 1-0 win over like New Mexico or something?
Somewhere around there. Yeah,
I don't know. It was super early and frankly forgettable again because we weren't too worried about if we were going to make the playoffs.
Yeah. So that brings us to the playoffs. Round 1 against North Carolina. They got it done. They gritted out the win. It was not really in the fashion we would have wanted. It was
that's playoffs.
Come from behind, kind of dig a hole early in the game. But I mean, we talked about this several times throughout the season, but this team was so dangerous that it never giving up an early goal never felt like a problem because it felt like every time that happened this season, they responded.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest example being that Memphis game at the end of September. It was a 4-2 win. They went down 2-0 like 20 minutes in. And they came roaring back to the point where like the 60th minute mark, like I've not seen a team on that pitch look so disinterested and checked out. Like I think if they could have just thrown in the towel and said, you know what, we don't need to finish this. There were probably a couple guys on the Memphis team that would have done that. Like they just looked out of it.
I don't think I've ever seen a team go down 2-0 and then have the lead by halftime.
Yeah, they did it. They came back quick too.
Just in an insanely fast comeback. So that's why, like, if they go down against North Carolina, they come back again. But then I feel like the conference semifinals, it was one time too many. It finally caught up to them. They finally went down early and were not able to come back.
A team that wasn't going to let that happen, Again, I don't want to take away from what Rhode Island did because they were excellent and they definitely deserve a lot of credit. But I think across the board, it was probably a mediocre, if not off night for a lot of guys. You had Artur Adonis returning after several games, and he did not do well. He essentially scored one for them with that second one with that poor pass. And the first one, I'd argue, he probably should have had a defensive stop there as well. I think there's other people, at fault for that first one too. But I mean, I think that almost the bigger story of that game was their inability to find a goal, and that was just came down to Rhode Island being like very responsible with their defending and knowing what Louisville City was going to do. It's never been a problem for any of these teams to know what Louisville City was going to do. It was more so, what are you going to do about it? And as we talked about before, they had a setup and a tactical situation that kind of lend itself well to shutting down Louisville City, and that's exactly what happened.
Since just to bring up so that we're not too rosy, I'm uncomfortable being all good news. Something odd to me that I wanted to bring up. Attendance was down 8% from last season, which was just a little odd. Like when I was reviewing end of season stuff, I was very surprised about. What do you think is going on there? Or do you think that's just the ebb and flow of season over season? I mean, they're upper 9,000s, so it's not like attendance was low.
The short of it, I think, is that it's the ebbs and flows, right? I think that we're starting to get an understanding of what the average ceiling is going to be attendance wise. And it's just, we're only going to see gradual improvements from here. But I mean, think about it this way. What you have, what did we say? 16, 17 home matches. That's a fairly small sample size you're dealing with. And all it takes is a couple of ULL matches intersecting the same day, a couple games that were pretty piss poor weather. There's your difference right there. There's a lot of people that are quite literally fair weather fans, and that's okay. You know what? Not everybody's going to start a podcast with their passion in this team, right? Some people are only going to come out when the weather's nicer, when their schedules align, etc. So that's small of a change.
To put it in context, other than like Charleston, who's playing in a different venue this season than before, on average, attendance was down across the league by about the same amount as Louisville. And so I actually might just chalk that up to last year being a World Cup year. You just probably get I didn't
even think about that.
I think just all soccer leagues get a little bit of a bump because you see news about the World Cup and people go check out some games. And so I actually, it only just dawned on me right now, but looking at that, the league as a whole also saw about the same. That pretty much everybody was down a little bit this year. I think that just might be like last year was a bump year. You typically have a little bit of drop after a World Cup year. We have a World Cup year in the United States next year, so I would expect we probably get a pretty big bump from that, even though it's not going to be, 26, 2 years. Sorry, we are gearing up for a World Cup. Here, so I think you'll probably get a bump from that as we get closer there.
One thing that is, I guess, is Louisville specific in this equation. It's normally when a team does well, you would think attendance would rise, but this has kind of just been par for the course for Louisville City.
Sometimes
we know that
just get used to winning all the time.
We know that this is a historic team. This was unreal what they did. The average fan, though, the person that actually the kind of people that are the difference makers in those ebbs and flows, they just know Louisville City is good again. So it doesn't add that extra bump it might otherwise add.
Yeah. The only thing
that's my 2 cents on it.
We went from above 10,000 to below 10,000, which is a meaningless threshold, but I like being above the 10,000 number.
Yeah.
Still third in the league. I mean, I think it's nothing to be concerned about, but yeah, I would like to get that I would like to see line go up next year.
Oh yeah, number go up. Make me happy.
Do you have any thoughts on the season as a whole before we get into maybe some superlatives?
Just kind of overall, like it was just such an exciting year. I'm looking back at this list of matches, and there were just so many good ones for a variety of reasons. I refuse to shut up about that win over Tampa Bay towards the end of the season. Absolute thriller.
Oh, yeah.
You got that CBS game against Indy, that wild 6-4 game away to North Carolina. We have several blowouts, including that first one against Birmingham, and then 6-0 against Hartford.
Yep.
There's just so much, like so many cool, awesome games that happened this year, and I just feel like that the number of just memorable matches was up relative to previous years as well. Obviously, probably a little bit of your recency bias there, but it was just an exceptionally exciting season to watch when you put all the numbers aside, the wins and the average goals and all that crap. Like it was just exceptionally fun.
Yeah. I mean, some overall numbers. So 24 wins, which is tied for league record, plus 86 goals scored, which is a Louisville City record. I think not the league record because I think the Phoenix team.
Yeah, they had ended with 89.
And a team record for points earned at 76.
Yep.
Which I think is also like one behind it's right up there with the league record.
Yeah, so their points per game was 2.24. So every game they played, on average, they earned 2.24 points.
Absolutely incredible.
The next closest was Charleston with 1.88. Just to kind of give you an idea what that gap is. And it's a similar situation for goals too. 2.44
well, I was looking at
goals a game.
So my rule of thumb is always if you can score 2 goals for on average and 1 goal against on average, you are an elite team. That's like you are competing for the top of the league if you can average 2 for and 1 against.
Yep, and they averaged 2.44 goals for and only 1.21 goals against. So
yeah,
pretty spot on.
More than double goals for than goals against. You're not going to lose a lot of games if you average that. And then, I mean, the team was stacked this year. Would you? Now is the time to be putting things in context. We've talked about it all season, but now we can lock it in. The best roster Louisville City has ever had, I think.
Oh, bar none, yeah.
Comfortably, hands down. I think they started the season off with the best roster they've had and added to it mid-season.
Yeah. It somehow got more filthy, more unfair.
Added Goodrum and Manny.
Yeah.
Without really giving up anybody.
It reminds me of the good, like hot NFL teams, like get the big free agent signings because you got guys chasing rings, It was very much like that aura, which everybody hates it except for the fans of that team.
Collusion.
Yeah.
And then just looking at some of these individual performances, Harris scored 19 goals on the season. We were rooting for that hat trick in the final game of the season to get to 20. But Jansen Wilson had 9 goals this season.
Just as we expected coming into the season.
Exactly what we expected. I mean, like Ray, who I feel like has gotten an unreasonable amount of hate from the fan base this year. Ray was probably just like in my conversations with people and listening around the stadium, the most complained about player on the roster by far.
Yep.
And was 3rd in goals scored. I feel like the expectations for Ray have been, for some reason, set unreasonably high.
I just feel like he's, and there might be numbers to disprove this, but I think what people are seeing is that he loses whenever he loses the ball in noticeable fashions, and it seems to be more so than other players. And so people get frustrated. Or when he misses a shot, he misses a shot, you know?
Yeah.
So it's probably more of a perception deal.
But yeah, I mean, I think it says a lot about the season they had and the type of team they had this season that the player that I hear the most grief about is third on the team in goals scored and has 5 assists.
We can complain about our developing 21-year-old who is the third most goals.
Was a finalist for Young Player of the Season in the league, which I think is another thing people forget. Ray is 21. Ray is not. Ray was very young when he came here.
He's a baby.
Yeah. I think it's only up for Ray with his career.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, good Lord, they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 players score a goal this season. So a full starting lineup and a half basically scored a goal.
It's multi-goals for everybody except for Amadou Dia and Dylan Maris. And Amadou scored in the playoffs.
Dia scored in the playoffs.
More.
So, yeah.
I'm going up based off these regular season numbers here.
And
Dylan didn't even get 300 minutes. So the fact that he got 1 goal is not shabby.
We were talking before the show, but Tola had 2 goals this season and is now scoring in England. I think over the weekend scored his first league goal in League One.
That was a move that benefited everybody. It was a crowded roster. He wasn't going to usurp the throne. So he gets more playing time back home, and we free up a spot where, okay, you know what we could do? Get Philip Goodrum. Unfair.
So yeah, I mean, not to mention, I mean, we picked up the Defensive Player of the Year last year. We had some quibbles with the very last game of the season coming off of injury, but Ordonez had a great season.
Yeah.
For Louisville City.
You can't paint his whole season based off that
from
one.
Coach. Kyle Adams was captain for most of the season, which kind of surprised me. But everyone on the defense, Sharpie had another great season. Just a super solid backline for the whole year.
Yep.
With the benefit of depth. I mean, we basically had 4 guys who could play the 3 spots, and any of them could start in any combination.
Well, you could even put Dia in that mix. I think a time or two he slotted in that role. He's done center back before. He's kind of more of the emergency option.
I think it's better it's different when you're playing 3 in the back. I think Dia slots in just fine as one of the outside of the back 3. Because that's not too different from playing outside back like he normally does.
But even at the back 4, I think in a pinch you could put him there and he'd do a serviceable job.
But yeah, and then looking at all of the new players that we added in the offseason had great years. I mean, we talked about Wilson, kind of the surprise. But Davila, which I was talking with Evan on Blue Sky today, maybe the best season a Louisville City player has had ever. Definitely up there. Just he had like a league MVP level season. It did everything in the midfield.
Oh yeah, he was astounding. He was absolutely pivotal. We knew he was good and going to be a good pickup. I don't think any of us knew how good.
Yeah. Morris, who I feel like fan favorite, like a really solid season from him.
He turned some heads.
He's fun to watch because you can he plays hard some people play hard and it looks easy, but he plays hard and it looks like he's playing hard, which is fun to watch.
That's
not a knock.
That's a great way of putting it. That's spot
yeah.
on.
I think like which unfortunately he was hurt this season, but like Jorge never looks like he's playing super hard because he's so like gentle on his feet. Like he moves so smooth that even when he's playing hard, it looks under control and smooth.
I think he does a good job of being efficient too. And sometimes those players can visually look lazier, you know, like watch somebody like Messi, for example, how little he runs because he knows when he has to. That's the trait of a good player.
But yeah, just Perez, I think just imagine the season we would have had if Perez had been healthy all year, because like they absolutely dominated teams when he was available for a full 90.
Yeah, I mean, he got 7 assists. What is that? I think that's the highest average. Yeah.
7 assists on 1,200 minutes. So basically half a season.
Yeah, it's half an assist a game. Like if he stayed healthy the whole time.
I think if he's healthy all year next year, he's definitely making a run at double-digit assists.
I was so excited for him at the start of the season because, I mean, of all the players, like fit-wise, like for what they were trying to be, I knew I'm like, oh, man, he is the most perfect fit. So, a little disappointed he didn't, that he had that injury bug he had to go through a little bit, but still put on a really good performance.
But yeah, now's probably a good time. Well, no, I'm going to save it. We'll talk about off-season announcements when we're talking about getting ready for next year. So, but yeah, I mean, I just feel like basically all of the off-season moves last year panned out across the board.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, the young players we carried over from last year, like Elijah had his best year. One young player of the year for the league. Although because of all the complaints I'd heard, I really, just for hilarity reasons, was kind of hoping Ray would win that because he was also a finalist. But Elijah deserved to win it. I mean, yeah. Honestly, as good of an offseason as you could ever hope to have last year, signings-wise.
Yeah, Danny definitely did his homework. He knew the kind of players he wanted in the openings he had. And, I mean, it's hard to nitpick at that. Like, we'll call it a recruiting class and what more he could have done there.
No.
Again, there's all the talent in the world, and it panned out over the course of the regular season.
Let's get into some superlatives. And I can lead off with this one because I did my homework and prepared. But do you have a favorite goal for the year? I got a good one.
We talked about this before we start recording, and you knew I didn't have one.
I gave you a heads up. We did it for racing. You know it's coming.
I was talking. I didn't get a chance to think through all the goals of the season.
I'll lead us off.
Yeah.
Because you'll probably just say mine after I say it.
I probably. What was it?
It's the Ordonez goal to beat Tampa Bay. The
in terms
almost
of moment,
but not quite bicycle kick. I don't know what you want to call that. Like a half bicycle kick.
I won't call this prettiest goal, but like when you add in the factor of
in stoppage
closing
time
out that game, cinema.
Oh,
so good.
And it was a great goal. Like a very athletic. That he kicked that ball above or at head level, about 6 feet away from his center of gravity. That not a lot of people can get a foot on that.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, though, Taylor Davila had several like outside the box strikes. Like he was a bit of a sniper. That was a lot of fun to watch.
I feel like every Davila goal was Like, he did not score a normal.
Yeah,
Every
you
goal
can't
was a
score in the box.
worldie.
It all has to be outside the box.
No easy goals.
I don't know. I always turned up when Jansen Wilson scored because it was Jansen, and it was probably the most fun story of the season. And Amadou's goal, yeah, that got me. I'm a big Amadou Dia fan, so when he scored, that excited me. I was all for that one.
And we got 2 Dia goals, so we were fortunate.
I know, very fortunate.
So
who was your MVP of the team? I feel like it's probably
Davila. I said he was in the running for league MVP.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So, like, it feels like it's probably obvious, but I'm going to ask.
Are we in agreement on that one?
Yeah.
Who is? We'll do both of these separately. So, who was your young player of the year for Louisville City? This one's probably kind of easy since one of the players won young player of the year in the league.
Yeah, I'm Team Elijah. He did an outstanding job. That midfield was very pivotal to what they're doing, and Davila couldn't do it all, and so Elijah's efforts were definitely a huge component of the team's success.
Yeah. Kind of insane how many players you could make the case for there. I don't know where you make the cutoff for young player, but like Jansen Wilson had a great season. This was his rookie year. I mean, Davila is only 23. Kind of insane. Like Winder, I know he got a lot of complaints from me this season, but Laws is only 21 years old. He's I think this is one of the youngest. This is the most young players in the rotation. I feel like Louisville City has successfully integrated.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, we had when Josh Winder and Jogo were here, but I still feel like there's more players now, even though maybe that's the best.
I haven't crunched the numbers, but like, look at I would agree with you based on vibes and what I can recall.
So of the who is the best new addition this season?
That isn't named Taylor Davila, right?
That's not Davila. We're gonna if you win MVP, you're disqualified from the other ones.
I was gonna ask the same question.
Yeah.
I think I would go with I mean, there you can make several good cases.
That's another one that's tough.
But I think I'm gonna go with Jansen Wilson.
That's a good one. I would say, had he been healthy all year, I would have gone with Perez.
Yeah.
I mean, you could go with Ordonez just to balance it out. To go with the defense.
Again, like you can make your case for most of these guys. Like you could have a good case. Like, hey, I hear you. It's not like I think you're like objectively wrong. Like,
yeah. I think he really allowed the team to play the style that they played this season by anchoring that defense in the center all year.
Yeah.
I mean, the team was able to play when he was out, but I still think
you need a reliable.
He stylistically let the team play the way they wanted to play.
Yeah, he was huge. I mean, part of my reason for picking Jansen on top of the numbers he put up and it being a fun storyline is that he was a tactically flexible asset. He not only played that also important wing back role, but when the time came, he played up the pitch as well. And I think there's something to be said about being able to plug a playing guy and not have any perceived drop off in like quality or compromising what you're doing. Yeah. That means a lot.
You have a favorite game?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think my favorite was probably that win over the Rowdies. It's just so damn exciting. Playing the Rowdies always means something more. It was a close game. I don't know that we didn't get a ton of games that felt like, nail biters. Oh, it's going to be close. Like, And so that one definitely sticks out to me. But again, there's a number of other matches. That
I'll add that Memphis game just to demoralize the team that bad.
Oh, that was incredible. Like that one will stick out for a long time for me. I know it was sloppy.
To go down 2-0 and then have the lead by halftime is just crazy. That never happens.
And I do got to shout out that North Carolina game. It was, it was a sloppy affair, but 6-4, like that's fun.
It was a wild one.
We had fun with that. And same with that CBS 5-3 win over Indy. Another just like totally exceptional day all around.
Yeah.
Another great one.
And
the Sacramento Republic win. That was another good one. It was the 4-3. Tosh scoring the header to win it. And then they announced his contract renewal like right after that.
Solid. That's a good lead in. Unless you have any other superlatives, we can talk off season, talk looking forward to next year, what we want to see from the team. We just got a roster update.
Yeah. Let's talk looking forward, looking ahead, the roster.
So 18 players from last season have already re-signed for next year, which includes basically Wes Sharpie, Amadou Dia, Danny Fondes, Phil Goodrum, Wilson Harris, Aiden McFadden, Jake Morris, Arturo Ordonez, Adrian Perez, Manny Perez, Sean Tosh, and Winder are all already on contracts that continue into next season. And then in addition to that, Louisville City picked up the option for Isaac Cano, Evan Davila, Sam Gleadle, Carlos Mogul, Ray Serrano, and Ryan Troutman.
First thing I thought of when I saw that, I'm so happy that Carlos was kept.
Yeah,
I thought he was out.
Again, talking about how players who have had really big success. Carlos is 20 right now. Carlos cannot even drink still. So, I mean, with the talent we've seen from him, having to step up as young as he has, that's a player I want around.
Yeah, I just thought he might be an odd man out of favor. He hardly played, so I'm really happy he's still around. I had suspected that he might be out of the fold just by virtue of just kind of falling off the radar completely,
And then in addition to that, only 3 players were announced as departing so far. So Owen Dom, it was the end of his contract. Damian Laws ended his loan, which I had forgotten he was on loan.
Yep.
And then Dylan Mayers ended his contract, which
that was obvious as soon as he started like playing for that Southern Indiana team, because that would have cup tied him for the Open Cup, which if he was coming back, Louisville City doesn't want that. They want that tactical flexibility. So that one, and he didn't play a ton, not even 300 minutes. He's getting older. Like, made sense.
Is a combination of I think he is unfortunately had a lot of health trouble staying on the field, and Louisville City was pretty stacked. I mean, we talked about the season Davila had. That midfield was pretty sewn up this year. It was hard to get
out there.
Then the team also noted, which they didn't specifically list him as departing, but that the team is continuing to coordinate with Jorge on his rehabilitation, which I guess indicates that they've not parted ways. I don't think I think it's still a medical wait and see what happens there with Jorge.
He took a pretty nasty injury, so
that was a brutal injury.
Yeah, that was not good. So still to be seen on Jorge in terms of his health and where things will go from there. But I'm sure the club will support him in some capacity at minimum.
And I would say out of that announcement, the biggest question mark is our MVP Davila was not on that list of re-signing, but the team announced that they're in negotiations with other players, so this is not a definitive list. More players are going to be added to this most likely.
Yeah.
I would note that they picked up the option on his brother, which would indicate to me that that probably things are going well with the negotiations.
Well, in terms of Evan, like I
have no inside information. It's just like when you sign a player and his younger brother, and then you pick up the option on his younger brother that didn't really play a whole lot this season, that would indicate to me that maybe things are going okay in the negotiation.
I think they liked what they got from Evan though when he went on the few times he was used. So I don't think that was as intertwined with his brother as it might look.
I don't think they're a package deal or anything.
But with that said, I'm pretty sure that he was already under contract for this upcoming season. So it's either like they're negotiating, they're giving him a raise, which is deserved, or B, he's getting an opportunity at the next level, which I look at as a positive. Would suck to lose him, but this is how you recruit the best talent in the league, is when you show, hey, we can be a pipeline.
I would be extremely surprised if he goes anywhere other than up. Like I think if he's playing in the USL next season, he will be on Louisville City.
Oh, I would. Yeah. I'd bet the house on that one.
And then, as far as last season went, not a huge question mark just for on the field what we have, but of note to big Louisville City fans is oh gosh,
are you talking about
Ownby and Niall are not on either of the lists, so that is still a wait and see thing.
They're both at the age where we're not going to know till they tell us. It's going to be hard to speculate.
And I would not be surprised. As far as Niall goes, I think we either get an announcement that he's re-signed or we get an announcement that he's on the staff.
I hope he doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah. I think I would not be surprised he's the kind of player I would not be surprised to see transition straight into a staff role with the club, just like Paolo did.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, Niall's been around since season 1. I really hope he resigns, just because I want to give Niall a proper send-off. I want to know ahead of time when it's going to be the last Niall game, because
I don't think these guys want that though. I don't think you're going to get that.
But anyway,
I hear you though. I
get sentimental about Niall because Niall's been here since year 1. So
yep,
that's our last year 1 player. Which is why, hopefully he's on the staff, even if he doesn't resign, because I think Niall deserves a tifo one way or the other. Anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, we had said in our final recording of the season that kind of seemed like the sort of year roster-wise where we just wanted to keep it rolling into next season and not mix things up too much. Absolutely what we got from this first announcement.
Yeah. And again, like you kind of alluded to, most of his missing names, I imagine we'll be back or on to something better that reflects positively upon the club. So we will see.
And man, I don't want to hate on anybody. I'm not broken up about Loss leaving.
He made me anxious at times.
He is skilled. He's like a quality goal stopper. He's really young. So he's even younger than I thought he was when I was getting ready for this. So I was probably too harsh on him, but just he's got growth to make in decision making and knowing game situation and communication with defenders. And just like I never felt super confident that him and the defenders were going to be on the same page in important moments. As far as going into next season, just looking at what we have now, even if Davila resigns, the team's is a little thin in the midfield. So I would expect we'll see some midfielder signings.
Yeah.
Because even with Davila, it's basically him and Carlos and Elijah are the only three central midfielders.
You got to think that both Davila and Elijah should be on the MLS radar.
Yeah.
So you got to be prepared and have a succession plan in place. So I would
as far as biggest scouting concern in the offseason, I mean, if Davila signs with someone else, that's a huge hole. But even with him on the roster, I still think you want more depth there. And goalkeeper, definitely we're like goalkeeper's leaving. Goalkeeper needs to come in for sure. I thought Danny Fondes played real good when he had to play, which was that 2 seasons ago at this point when we got some major minutes from him.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think even if we're rolling into next season with him as the number one, you still need another backup there at least.
Yeah. No, I think that you go out and get the best goalkeeper you can, and then you let the battle.
All of this to say is I think we need to sign another keeper, but I think it's absolutely possible that we sign another keeper and Fondes is still the number one coming into next season, and I'm fine with that.
It's possible.
Yeah.
And to
I'm
add
I'm not sweating it if that happens, is what I'm saying.
To add to your list, I think they need to be in search of a center back.
I think that you need a depth center back.
Yep. I mean,
I don't think we're probably going out and getting another starter.
No, I mean, but like, look at this.
You need another rotation guy back there.
Tosh is 32.
Tosh is a year older.
Sharpie's 31. So you got some age. So it would not hurt to have somebody that is okay being in a growing position and one that could maybe one day play more regular minutes. But that day would probably not be next season.
Kind of set up top, though. I guess we'll see what happens with Ombi. Maybe like a wing player for some depth. But kind of they've re-signed everyone they need up top, basically.
Yeah, and then it comes down to more like luxury signings, more so than like, oh crap, we gotta fill this hole.
I was glad to see Gleedle re-sign because I think we didn't see as much maybe as we had hoped of him this season, but he is super versatile, kind of like you mentioned with Wilson. He can fill in a couple different positions. I think it's very good having him on the team another season.
He got him as 900 minutes. That's nothing to turn your nose to.
Yeah. Not a lot of starts. He played. He was like a solid rotation player, which I think
exactly.
Maybe one of those on most other teams in the league. He's a starter, and it's kind of being on a team like Louisville City. That's what you pay for success. He's a rotation guy here, but I think he's still a very important rotation guy because of what he offers them as far as Swiss Army knife. You can slot him at a couple different positions. I think he's a good rotation player to have held on to.
Yeah, I agree with that one. I'm happy to still see him stick around. He's a good guy, like good locker room guy. Like that stuff definitely plays a factor as well.
You know what we didn't even mention? Coach Cruz won. Coach Cruz won Coach of the Year for the first time in Louisville City history. We have not had a coach win Coach of the Year.
I was kind of fearful that I thought the New Mexico coach Quill would win it by virtue of their like year-over-year turnaround, which shouldn't exactly be the basis of the award, but I feel like a lot of times it's interpreted that way.
Yeah.
So that's why I thought he would win, but
is why it's why we've not had a coach win it before, which is like the standard's so high. I would say it's also like when your team keeps switching coaches and still winning, it's hard to give a lot of the credit to the coach, which I think is a problem they've had with getting a coach to win that award before.
Yeah, so it was absolutely deserved by Coach Cruz. Don't get me wrong, he was my pick. Like if I were picking, even with Mike bias removed, like just look at the numbers this team put together this season. So many off-season signings to make it happen. It's not like he's just rolling out the same team year over year. Yeah. Like he put in a lot of work to put this team together, changed the whole team. He's still a young coach.
It's another thing to forget because it feels like because he was an assistant here. He's been here a while. Mm-hmm. He is very young for a coach still.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm glad he finally got got that accolade. They absolutely deserved it.
But yeah, I mean, I think it was an incredible season. I feel like the team's already set themselves up well for next season. Just based on last offseason, even though we said there's not a lot of holes to plug, I would not be surprised to see a couple big signings because it just appears that that's what we do now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, last season, they're coming off the team's, I'm going to use air quote, worst season. While technically correct, we still made it to the Eastern Conference Final. They still went the distance, but we knew there needed to be a lot of changes. But this year, it's like, it's not broke, don't fix it kind of situation, Yeah. One bad game, you're out of the playoffs. That's the nature of the playoffs. You got to look at the whole body of work from the regular season. Like, this is a team that can win the cup. Let's largely keep it together. So, but I imagine that the signs they do make, I bet there will be I
think they're going to be flashy
big ones
still.
Yeah. I mean, this is an attractive destination. So if you're one of the best players in the league, why would you not want to join this, Yep.
But yeah, it's all, a great season. It's a little disappointing into the season. But no reason not to have high hopes for next year.
Yeah. I mean, it sucks not, the Eastern Conference streak's broken. But we won the supporter shield, something that or player shield, whatever the hell it's called. And that's something
the team has never done.
They've never done that before.
For as much success as the team has had, checked off two things that the team's never had this season, which was Coach of the Year and supporter shield.
I think that's worth its own weight in gold. Obviously, it's not the biggest, baddest prize on the block, but if we were going to end our streak for the Eastern Conference Finals, very palatable year to do so, in terms of, we did have a lot of great memories. We did do a lot of great things.
And we got to see firsthand. It's why not many teams have done both. It's hard to do both in the same year.
Yep. Very hard.
Well, Ben, I'm feeling good. We're going to have a fun season next year, I think.
Yeah. I'm excited to see how this offseason shakes out and what the next season will bring us. Oh, I'm getting that itch again already. Too early for that, huh?
I feel like I need to add some more responsibilities. Well, so this is our last time for the year. Do you want to lead the people out on you got one last recommendation for everybody? It better not be cleaning supplies
or Metal Gear Solid.
Or Metal Gear
Solid, by the way, but that's not my thing.
Kojima's on Blue Sky now.
Good for him. My kick recently has been retro video gaming. I'm putting air quotes around that because it's only going so far back on the time scale. I'm talking like N64 and GameCube. So what I've started to do is
those are well over 25 years ago. That's extremely retro.
When I think retro gaming, you know, I think SNES, NES.
I know, we're old now.
The bazillion of other ones, yeah. But my youth, those systems. So I got some old N64s off the Goodwill auction website. Yes, that site exists. You can get it's shocking what kind of like awesome deals you can get before you look at the shipping. So if you do use that site, be careful of that one.
Shipping on typewriters, those things are heavy. It turns out real high shipping on typewriters. I found out firsthand.
So I got a few N64s. Already had one, but I got a few for cheap. And so I'm going to try my hand at like modding and doing like the hands-on, like kind of tinkering with them, cleaning them up. Nice. And I got one GameCube, and this one's in working condition.
Oh wow! And
I'm going to mod it because you can have it where it'll take an SD card, load the games up on there. Got new shell coming. You need
soldering help? Let me know, because that is a thing I know how to do.
I might hit you up on that because that's something I have to figure out what to do. So it would be nice.
I can give you a class. I can show you the ropes.
All right, I'm actually going to take you up on that. But so that's been my recent kick. Is like, you know, tinkering with N64s and GameCube, and I've also got a PS2 because I have a decent collection of PS2 games, and mine broke. And I'm going to do the same thing where I can play everything off a hard drive. And I got a Guitar Hero guitar. So I'm really excited to play that again.
It's a good one.
Those are so expensive, by the way.
Yeah.
The Guitar Hero.
Which is weird because they made 1 billion of them and sold 1 billion of them. They should be just everywhere.
You can find a ton of wireless ones, but nobody kept their dongle.
Oh, yeah.
And the wired ones, like with the USB thing, those go for big money because you can plug it in the computer. So it's just an expensive situation if you're trying to do that. But on the Goodwill site, I got an affordable PS2 one.
My like retro game setup in the office. I've got Genesis and NES and Super Nintendo and N64. I need to add a PlayStation, like the original Gen 1 PlayStation. That's the one I'm missing.
Shop Goodwill.
I know. Trust me, I know.
They're on there. Zach, what have you been into? What do you got for the people?
My recommendation for the people, it is soccer season has ended. Craft season has started in the Allen household. I have been all about all my crafting. And so my recommendation for everybody is to find something that you enjoy making with your own hands and do it just for the joy of making it. Don't worry about stuff being perfect. Don't put a lot of pressure on yourself. Just enjoy the fun of creating yourself. Me specifically, because we got gift giving season come up. So I've been doing a lot of like sewing projects, working on gifts and things. Mm-hmm. But whatever the thing you're into is, like, take some time, make some stuff. It's nice to have things that we made with our hands around. It brings me joy.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Here for it.
Well, Ben,
sign off one more time.
Sign off for the last time this season.
Yes. Well, we appreciate everybody who's tuned in and joined us on this ride. It's been a fun year, and we appreciate you. And thanks as always to our State of Louisville partners. Wouldn't happen without them. So
it's been a great run.
Thank you. All right. I'm out of here. You guys enjoy your off season. We'll come back when there's more stuff to talk about.
We'll see you later. Bye, y'all.
Bye.